Hi, everyone. Oh, wow. Well, first and foremost, to the Grand Rapids Business Journal, thank you. Thank you so much. This is truly an incredible honor. And also, very importantly, let's give a round of applause again for the 50 most influential women of West Michigan. To the 50 women, I'm so humbled and I'm so honored to be standing before you. Many of you are role models, including one of my first role models, Miranda. You made my summers awesome. Who didn't love those park parties? Many of you are leaders who are bold and brave enough to stand up for equality and to stand up for what is right, even when it's against the status quo. Mayor Roslyn Bliss. Many of you are mentors of mine who've been with me on my journey at my highest high and my lowest low. Sandra Gaddy. Many of you are friends and leaders who've inspired me and have encouraged me to grow and to give back professionally and to our community. Tammy Vandenberg. Diana Seeger. And Lindsay Gleason. And to all of you who I haven't had the honor and the privilege of meeting yet, let me introduce myself. My name is Graci Harkema. I'm the owner of Graci LLC. Many of you might have seen me on the news, but some of you who haven't, let me share with you about my journey and about my life before I came onto this stage. I was born in a mud hut in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The hut that I was born in looks very similar to the hut that you see on the screen. I was born in Central Africa, about 1 mile away from the Rwandan border. If you're familiar with the movie Hotel Rwanda, or if you're familiar with the Rwandan genocide, it took place in 1994, where 1 million men, women, and children were killed based on their tribal identity. When I was born, it was just leading up to that. This is a photo of my biological mother and I. In this photo, she's about 14 years old. My biological mother had a very small chance of survival. When she gave birth to me, she was dying due from disease and malnutrition. She had 2 kids who were born previous to me who died shortly after birth. My biological mother didn't want that to happen to me. She wanted me to have a chance at care and a chance at life. At 1 week old, she brought me to an orphanage. I was given 12 to 24 hours to live. I had 4 different diseases, and I weighed 3 pounds. When I arrived to the orphanage workers placed me in the back of the orphanage in a toy doll set. They didn't want me to risk getting the other babies sick or me dying. They placed me in the back, which would have been fine. However, coincidentally, 2 hours later, an American missionary family from Grand Rapids happened to be visiting the orphanage. They had 4 kids who were grown. They weren't planning to adopt. They came to help out the orphanage workers. But before they left, the woman had to use the restroom. She cut to the back of the orphanage, and she saw me there in the toy set. She thought I was a doll. She thought I was a doll of one of the orphanage workers named Amy. She went to the bathroom, and she came out and touched my forehead and realized that I was human. In that moment, she heard a voice say, "This is your daughter." She realized that God was calling them to adopt me. She told her husband, he had a peace about it, and that very same day, they adopted me and they prayed for a miracle. I didn't have any medical care as there weren't any hospitals around. But one day, a German pediatrician came through our village, and she happened to have a soy-based protein that my body was able to digest. My parents purposely did not name me. They waited to name me until a name came to them with meaning and significance. I started healing. I started thriving. My parents named me Graci after the grace of God that I was found and that I was healed. When I was about 6 months old, my family and I went back to the orphanage to meet with my biological mother. And as you see in this photo, my biological mother is giving the blessing to my mom to adopt me. We didn't hear from my biological mother again after that, and we presumed that she died. There's a picture of my father and I on the day that my adoption was official. And here's a photo of my family and I. Can you guess which one is me? We lived into the Congo until I was almost 4 years old, and then we moved to the US, more specifically to Grand Rapids. I grew up in a very homogenous city outside of Grand Rapids. I had a graduating class of 500. Of the 500, I was the only Black female. I felt like I stuck out, and I felt like I didn't belong. Here's a photo of my family and I, present day. Growing up, having a loving family, and the opportunity of American dream, it appeared like I had everything. However, there was something that I was keeping as a secret from the world. Since the age of 6, I knew I was gay. I felt like I had to keep it a secret because I thought that if people knew, I wouldn't be loved and I wouldn't be accepted. I didn't know what my family would think. I didn't know what my friends would think. I hid it for most of the people in my life for 22 years. That's a long time to keep a secret. At the age of 9, after school, I was molested by a neighbor who was older than me. I hoped that it would never happen again. It happened again and again and again for the next 2 years. I wish that I was somebody else. He told me that if I told anyone, worse things would happen to me. I was tricked into believing that it was my fault. I didn't want my family to know because I didn't want them to experience pain. I didn't want them to know what I was going through. So I kept that a secret. I kept that a secret for 10 years. Eventually, that neighbor moved away. He got caught for his actions with other young girls, and he went to jail. I focused my energy on sports. I got involved with soccer as a way to feel like I was a part of something. I played soccer for most of my life. And apparently I had a really good kick because I was recruited to play men's Division I varsity football. I was the first girl in the history of the school to make the team. Our picture was on the wall at Applebee's, and we went to the playoffs. During and after college, I worked in corporate roles with previous employers for 10 years while being in the closet. I often told stories of made-up boyfriends just to fit in. Currently, in Michigan, it is legal to be evicted from your home or being fired from your job for being gay. But we're working on bringing that to the ballot this year. Thank you, Rosalind Bliss. So because of the risk, I kept that a secret, and I couldn't risk losing friends, losing the support of my coworkers, or even more so, losing my job. I interviewed with a technology firm, Tech Systems, in June 2013. In the interview, the director asked me to tell him of a time where I had overcome adversity. And I thought, okay, that's an easy answer. But my go-to answer would have been to tell him about being adopted and to tell him about growing up in a homogenous area and to tell him how it felt like to live an entire life without anyone who looked like you. But that was a cop-out. The real answer of me overcoming adversity was in that moment. In that moment, in my interview, I came out. It came out like word vomit. And then I realized I was in an interview. I thought, I'm either going to get this job because of this answer, or I'm not going to get this job because of this answer. And his response changed my life. His response to me coming out was that he was proud that I felt like I had the ability to be my authentic self with him, and that if I worked there, I would have the opportunity to help others be their authentic self, because he never wanted any of his employees to come to work feeling like they couldn't be themselves. Well, I got the job. Shortly after I started, I got involved with leading various employee resource groups, and I was in a career development program designed for equipping high potential employees for leadership roles. Having the ability to be my authentic self and being supported in an inclusive environment meant that I was able to come to work as my whole self every single day. I didn't have to come to work with extra barriers or extra weights or extra stresses. I didn't have to make up fake boyfriends. I just got to come to work and do my job. I had my passion for doing this and my passion for leading employee resource groups gave me the desire to help others be their authentic selves and pursue a career in diversity and inclusion. Everything seemed to be going well. However, there was something missing. From time to time, I would think of my biological mother. I would think about what it would be like to have someone in my life that looked like me, to have the mannerisms of somebody. Well, remember Amy from the orphanage who had the doll set? I contacted her on Facebook. I was doing a project on the Rwandan genocide, and I asked her if I could interview her on what her life was like during that time. She mentioned my biological mother, Marejani, and I said, "How did you know Marejani?" She said, "When your family moved to the US, my family helped take care of her because she was sick and she was dying." And I asked her, I said, "Amy, do you know if Marejani is still alive? I need to have closure of knowing, or at least I need to know when she died." And 5 years ago, I got this text message. It's a conversation between Amy, who now lives in Kenya, and her friend, who lives in the Congo. Amy asks her friend, "Do you know if Marejani is alive?" The friend writes back, "Yep, she is still alive. She came after me 2 weeks ago in Kidodobo, asking about her daughter, but I didn't have a clue. That daughter that they're referring to is me." I couldn't believe she was alive and that we were both asking about each other at the same exact time of our lives. I told my mom and dad that Marejani was alive and that I had to meet her. I needed them to come with me on this trip to the Congo. I needed to meet Marejani to say thank you. Her giving me up gave me life. And I needed my parents to be on that trip as well, because I needed Marejani to see how much my parents love me and to see the opportunity of life that I've been given. My parents knew how much it meant to me, but they were nervous. Before the trip, my mom said to me with fear in her eyes, will I still be your mom? I said, of course. My need to meet my biological mother did not take away from my mom from being my mom. But I could begin to imagine the worry and the risk she was taking. So I'm sure you're wondering, what was it like? Flying to the Congo to meet my biological mother felt like I was sitting on top of the world's largest roller coaster. Its thrill excited me. Its magnitude intimidated me. I longed to ride it for years. My apprehension was building. My anxiety was high. However, I had to meet her. I didn't have a way to communicate with her to tell her that I knew she was alive because she was living in a mud hut. She didn't have a phone. She didn't have internet access. She didn't know we were coming. So I'm sure you're wondering, what was it like to meet her? Meeting my biological mother was perfect. It was like a script from a movie. The moment I saw her, everything made sense and I felt complete. When I met her, I knew her. The first thing she said to me in Swahili was, "My daughter, my daughter, my daughter." And even though we don't speak the same language, we have the same voice inflections. I also discovered where my smile came from. My dad was recording the moment. Her words, "My daughter, my daughter, my daughter," gave me a renewed sense of purpose. There were many years in my life where I felt disconnected to my identity, and I felt disconnected to who I was, and I could not be myself. But in that moment, I was complete, and everything made sense. She gave me up in order to give me life. I discovered my purpose. My purpose is to help empower others to live authentically. I also discovered that I have two biological brothers, one who is married with kids, and the other who's younger and still lives with my biological mother. They were living in a mud hut at the time, and I'm still not sure how they all survived. I had an instant bond and connection with my biological brothers. It was as if we had been close our entire lives. My parents also discovered their purpose as well. My parents were moved from the experience, and they saw the impact that they could create in the Congo, very similar to what they did 30 years prior, by helping people. My parents were so moved that, in fact, 3 years ago, they physically moved to the Congo. They run a faith-based nonprofit called Heart for Central Africa, and they now take care of my biological mother and other women who've been victims of abuse and sex trafficking. Here are some photos of us FaceTiming. My dad is holding the phone for Marijani, and I'm imagining that this is the very first time that Marijani has ever seen a smartphone. And I can only begin to imagine what that experience was like for her, to be able to FaceTime with her daughter who lives on the other side of the world in real time, but her smile says it all. Life isn't just about accomplishing professional goals. It's also about accomplishing personal goals. One of the goals when I met my biological mother was to get her a house. She has never had a house. She has lived in a mud hut for her entire life. A house means warmth, safety, security, sanitation, and the ability to make and store food. My brother has never had a bed or his own room. 2 years ago, with the guidance of my parents, I bought her a house. The first photo is Marijani sitting proudly in front of her house. The second photo is my younger brother sitting on his bed in his own room. And the third photo, my mom describes as her kitchen is in the back of the house. She is cooking beans to serve with rice. You bought her everything for her life, and she repeatedly rejoices. Marijani and my brothers are doing extremely well. Marijani is now in great health, and my brothers are flourishing also. Things were going quite well. I was comfortable. I was comfortable in my life. I was comfortable in my career. But growth doesn't come out of comfort. Sometimes it's uncomfortable to grow, but I knew that I had to. I wanted to create a larger impact. Facebook COO Sheryl Sandberg says, "Careers are a jungle gym, not a ladder. If I had planned my career, I would have missed my career." The same goes for me. There will be sideways turns, opportunities, leaps, challenges, and obstacles that will provide us with a chance to learn more, grow more, and gain more. Take those opportunities and empower others around you. An opportunity presented itself to be the diversity and inclusion director at a place and in an industry that needed the work. Due to history, it was a risk. There was a lot of praise, but there was also a lot of negativity. After taking the role, I received criticism from people who were more interested in throwing rocks at the sidelines than from people who were actually doing the work. Things were going well on the outside. We accomplished a lot. However, behind the scenes, I was bullied on social media. I lost people in my life who I thought were long-term friends, and I was robbed. However, I believed in the work, and I believed in what needed to be done. The more we grow in our career, the more critics we are going to have. There were times where I felt defeated. I let the opinions of others get to me. I would read the things that people would say about me in blogs and in social media, and it was the most hateful things from strangers and from people that I had known for most of my life. I took those negative opinions and criticisms to heart, to the point where it almost destroyed me. I couldn't communicate what I was going through. I felt paralyzed in time. I was in a cave. I couldn't see beyond the next moment. I was having panic attacks. There were too many times where I thought I was taking my last gasp of air. Hives covered my entire body. The scars still remain. There were days where I wanted to die. Something had to give. I leaned on my faith for support and direction. I leaned on my parents for wisdom. And I leaned on my close friends for support. I did some deep reflection with Brene Brown's Daring Greatly, and I remembered my purpose. In Daring Greatly, Brene Brown references Teddy Roosevelt's speech, "The Man in the Arena." It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or how the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again, because there's no effort without error or shortcoming, but who does actually do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who at best sees the triumph of high achievement, and who at worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. During those trials, I learned that you can't take criticism and feedback from people who are not being brave with their lives. My perspective changed. I learned to ignore the haters. I kept driving towards my purpose. Several months later, I chose to use my voice to stand up for what I believed in, to stand up for integrity, to stand up for what's right, not just for me, but for those who didn't have a voice. It was scary. It was uncomfortable. It was a risk. It made national news. And I received a lot of feedback from others. But this time, I didn't let the negative feedback affect me. In the words of Brené Brown, I chose courage over comfort. I chose to be brave. Only when we are brave enough to explore the darkness will we see the infinite power of our light. It's easy to get consumed. It's easy to get caught up. It's easy to let negativity take control over you. I had to learn how to establish healthy boundaries. And in return, I got a puppy. As a reminder, I named him Teddy Roosevelt. Focus on what matters and remember your purpose. But don't forget to enjoy life while you're at it. You are powerful. The sun rises and sets with you. Make each day your mark. Speak up for what you stand for. Live your truth. Life is a journey. You don't have to be from a mud hut to have a story. We all have a story. We all have a purpose. By the grace of God, I was found. I have an amazing family who loves me. I grew up in a city where I felt like I didn't belong. I absorbed myself in sports to fit in. I'm queer. I came out. I took risks. I lost a lot of friends. I discovered my authentic self. I learned how to use my voice. I gained a true support system. I was brave. I failed. I failed greatly. I spoke my truth. I didn't give up. I know the journey isn't easy. There will be obstacles. Follow your passion. Empower others around you and create paths for others. Be open to new challenges. Speak up for what you believe in. Live your truth.